Hello. Welcome to class. All right, so here we are. Healing by design. We are actually on our last C class, cysts, fibroids, and tumors. We're going to kind of lump cysts, fibroids, and tumors all together because they're all the same thing, only different. So we will pray. All right, Father, thank you for this beautiful day, this time gathered together. May we know more of you and who you are and your creation and your design. We are honored to be a part of your creation, but we want to know more. We want to know deeper. We want to understand the things of God. We want to understand sickness and disease. We want to understand how to align with you in your heart so that we would be well, Lord, and that we would walk in the promises and the blessings that you would have for us. Help us to understand this topic today of cysts, fibroids, and tumors. We pray in Jesus' name, amen. So, my heart in these classes is to help people understand what's happening with their bodies, to help find God in what's happening with their bodies. This is a really good example of that. I mean, I think all the classes are, but this one particularly, an understanding when we have seemingly abnormal things happening in our body, or like an abnormal growth happening in our body, understanding why that is and where that comes from, and of course, what we would do about it. So, God designed an amazing body, and the first thing I want to share with you about cysts, fibroids, and tumors is that we call them, like one of the terms you hear about cysts and fibroids is an abnormal growth. It's an abnormal growth. And if you read any medical literature, they'll pretty much tell you that they don't understand why cysts, fibroids, and tumors grow, which is crazy because it's pretty obvious why these things grow. And so what I hope to share with you is, if you look at it from a God's design perspective, the way I always like to look at it is with the grid of what I believe in the Bible, and that's God's good. And sometimes it's hard to believe that when people have health issues. And if he's good, why do we have these health issues? And why are these problems coming up? And why are these cysts forming, et cetera, et cetera? And so what I say over and over again is that God talks to us through our bodies. We're made in the image of God. And so we know when things, well, we don't know perfectly because we don't really understand the human body that much, and we don't pay attention to our bodies that much. But we kind of know when things are going pretty well, and we kind of know when things aren't going so well. Like, we get stomach aches, and we get headaches, and we get pain, and we get this and that. Like, we know when things are out of alignment. And this would be another example of that. When we have a growth forming in the body, a cyst or a fibroid or a tumor, there's something going on. But God's good in his design of the human body. And how God designed the human body, there's no mistake, there's no flaw, there's nothing wrong with the body. When a cyst or a fibroid or a tumor grows, it's God's way of letting us know there's an issue. It's also God's way of protecting us, especially in the form of a tumor. So these are all congestion issues. They're all toxicity issues. It's all the sign of a body having too much excessive amounts of things that it can eliminate, and it starts to form them into what we call an abnormal growth. But if it wasn't for the beauty of God's design in creating a cyst, creating a fibroid, creating a tumor, these toxins, these poisons would stay trapped in our bodies, trapped in our bloodstream, and they would destroy us. So this is why God is always good. And everything we see is going wrong, it's God actually being good in his amazing design. And so this is a perfect example of that. It's God's protection over us that these things form. I mean, have you ever known somebody who had a cancerous tumor that grew to the size of a softball or a football or bigger, yet they're still alive? Why? It's the brilliance of God's design. Does that make sense? So if he didn't design the body to do these things, we wouldn't make it very long. We wouldn't make it very far. I always say, thank God for pain, because if we didn't experience pain, we'd never know something's wrong, and we would just all destroy ourselves because we're so out of alignment with how God designed us to live. And so if you look at the medical community, and their answers for if you have a cyst or a tumor or a fibroid is what? Take it out, surgery. And what does that solve? It doesn't solve anything. Now, if a person is in a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort, there's bleeding, it's interfering with other organs, I understand it. I do. I understand a medical necessity sometimes when something gets out of hand or out of control. But you haven't learned why this started happening in the first place. Why does a cyst form in the first place? Why does a tumor form in the first place? And so if you don't get to the root of it and you just surgically remove it, well, what do you know to do for the future to prevent this from happening? Because you haven't really learned anything. And so the other answer that they use in the medical community, you might have heard if you've known anybody who's had these issues, is birth control. They give women birth control to control their cysts. It's madness. Increases risks of cancer, affects fertility, on down the list. And it's because they don't understand the human body. And what they don't understand is they don't understand that all sickness and disease, I say all, the vast majority of sickness and disease as we know it is the result of a congested, toxic body. The holy temples that God designed have become polluted in our lifetime from our choices, but also in past generations. And that's why we see sick children today. Okay, children who are 1 year old covered in eczema and dermatitis and all kinds of different health issues, psoriasis or whatever. It wasn't their choices that caused them to be sick. It was the choices of past generations. So that's accumulating. So we have to take personal responsibility for ourselves. Unfortunately, we have to undo a lot that was done in the past, and that's the challenge of a lot of these issues. But the medical solution is not a good solution. It's usually either some kind of pharmaceutical drug, usually in the form of birth control, which is a synthetic estrogen, or it's surgery. And so I just want to make it very clear that we have these what we call an abnormal growth. It's not abnormal. It's how God designed it to work, to let us know that our body is congested, that it's accumulated toxins and waste beyond what it can naturally eliminate it, and so it's starting to form pockets of sickness and congestion into the form of abnormal growths. Okay, a cyst that people get often is called a lipoma. Okay, have you heard of that before, a lipoma? Okay, it's like a little squishy cyst that people get in different parts of their body. Well, what's lip, L-I-P, lipid, fat? It's a fatty growth. So it's the same thing. When the body's over-accumulated fats, maybe you got high cholesterol, maybe you got a fatty liver, your body's not metabolizing and eliminating all the fats properly, it starts to accumulate fats in these little growths, these little lipomas. You think of women getting ovarian cysts. Super common today. Super common, too common. PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, super common. See it in a lot of teenagers, a lot of women in their 20s. Fibroid tumors, extremely common as well. Uterine fibroids. And fibroids, they get as big as, I knew a lady one time who had a cyst as big as a football. Uterine fibroid, as big as a football. And so they're the result of congestion and toxicity. I just can't stress that enough. So for all, regardless if you have any of these three things, a cyst, tumor, or fibroid, diet is crucial in every single case. And like I said, it might be part of what you've chosen to do and eat in your lifetime, but it's also likely the accumulation of the weaknesses passed on to you from past generations, because genetics is a real thing. But we can't beat it, we can't overcome it. But we have to choose to lighten the load on the body. It's the only way to naturally get rid of a cyst or tumor is to lighten the load upon the body so that it itself can eliminate the cyst or tumor. The same reason that it grew from it being overstressed, overtoxic, overburdened By the opposite occurring, it can make it go away. By the body not being stressed, not being toxic, and not being overburdened. Sounds logical, sounds common sense, right? But we don't understand the crucial importance of cleansing in our generation today. We have women, men too, but a lot of women who suffer for years and years and years with these cysts and these fibroids, and no solution from the doctor, and excruciating pain around their cycle, and no real answers. And so we have to cleanse the body. We have to cleanse the body. That is absolute key. I've seen a lot of women with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and I don't want to say every time, but the 90% of the time when I see these women, they almost all have a chronic issue with the consumption of sugars and carbohydrates. They're bread, pasta, sweet eaters. And so, again, in our culture today, we're eating the wrong foods. We're overeating the wrong foods. Even when we go to eat healthy foods, we usually overeat the healthy foods. And so it's more than the body needs. And so the excess it forces the body to create these abnormal growths. The main elimination channels, the normal elimination channels, are the kidneys and the colon, right? The liver processes things in the body. We got a lymphatic system that's the cellular waste disposal system of the body. Stuff comes out through the skin. All those organs are taxed to the point where it can eliminate toxins, and it's starting to form these growths. So again, we have to do the opposite. And so if you want to go extreme, I mean, people call it extreme in our culture today just because it's hard enough just to change your diet and get away from eating breads and sweets and pastas and things like that. I've been down that road. It takes years for some people. It took me a long time. But extreme is what people do when they have serious situations. You think of cancer or something like that, they get serious. They go on juice fasts. They do juice only. They do fruits and vegetables only. In our culture today, we see that as extreme. I see it as normal. I see it as what we should be doing if anybody wants to have longevity, wants to be free of sickness and disease, wants to cleanse and heal their bodies, wants to get rid of these abnormal growths. The example I give people is a to-do list. This is just a fun example for me because I think it just makes sense. If you don't think for 1 second God doesn't love you, or that God, how should I say that? We should not think for 1 second that God doesn't love us, right? He loves us, and He loves our bodies, and He wants to heal us, and we're made in His image. Like we're a reflection of the living God made in His image. So when He sees these things going on in us, He more desperately wants us healed than we do, right? So why for 1 second would we not think that He wants us to heal of these things? Well, He's got a to-do list, okay? The body God designed has a to-do list. And getting rid of that cyst or that fibroid or whatever that is, I guarantee you is on the to-do list. But if you're living a lifestyle that's not conducive to getting through your to-do list, you're never going to heal of that cyst or tumor. In other words, you live in chronic stress and anxiety. You're eating processed foods or you're overeating. The body's so busy trying to deal with stress, anxiety, all the time eating, digestion, the elimination organs overworked because it can't ever catch up because you're eating nonstop all day, every day. It can't get to the to-do list. So it's not that God isn't a good designer. It's not that God doesn't want to heal us of these issues. It's that He can't get to it because we're always in survival mode. And this is why so many people don't get well. So you really do need to change your lifestyle. You do need to de-stress and declutter your life. And we do need to change our diets because there's no way the body's going to get to the depth of cleansing if it's trying to handle heavy foods. So diet's crucial in every single one of these situations. Like I said, a lot of women I see really struggle with breads and carbs and sweets and sugars. And they're even giving women metformin, which is a diabetes drugs, for PCOS. I've seen many, many teenagers and women in their 20s on metformin because they were diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. I know all of you have given me funny looks, and that's a good look to have because I don't understand half of what our medical community does. And again, it's just because they don't understand that they don't know the truth of how the body is designed and how to heal it. All right, so I'm going to share something with you that's pretty interesting. I'm going to get a little bit more specific into cysts and a little bit more specific into fibroids. I'm going to share from my experience. I'm not saying this is exclusively true, but from my experience, this is the majority of what happens and what's true. You will see people that have blue eyes often have cysts. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, getting various cysts throughout their body. And you will often see people with brown eyes getting more of the fibroids. If you think of the African American community, they get a lot of fibroids, a lot of fibroids. And so if you look at the eyes, and I've talked a little bit about this in some of the iridology stuff I've done, but blue eyes' tendency is to have congestion in their kidneys and their lymphatic system. And when your lymphatic system gets backed up, which is the sewer system of the body, you will start to grow cysts and abnormal growths. You want the simplest example of that? Fibrocystic breasts. What is breast tissue? It's lymph. Breast is lymph. If medical doctors would explain to women that the breast is lymph tissue and teach them how to eat nutritionally and stress the importance of exercise and not give them drugs, we could get rid of fibrocystic breasts, which leads to cancers and other things. So when the lymph system gets backed up, you're going to start to develop cysts, which is an abnormal growth because the thousands of miles of lymph is backed up and congested. There's nothing that the body, the resources are gone as far as the capacity of the body to eliminate waste and toxins. It starts to form cysts. I'm sorry I've said the same thing multiple times, but I'm just trying to paint a really clear picture that we know exactly what these things are. So that's common with blue eyes, genetically predisposed to it because of the history of blue-eyed people throughout history. Brown eyes' tendency is to have more issues with their liver and their blood. And so you're thinking anemia, cholesterol issues, liver issues, fatty liver. And with issues with the liver and the liver not being able to cleanse and the liver not being able to detoxify results in more of the fibroid types of issues. So cysts, I mentioned the fibrocystic breast. Okay, that's a pretty obvious example. I mean, I've seen people with really, really congested lymph, and they have pain in all the major areas where their lymph is. Right here in their neck area, under the armpits, and into the breast tissue, we know is a common place of lymph. In the gut, there's a lot of lymph. In the growing area, and then right behind the knees. I mean, I have a gal that I'm seeing right now that has a lump the size of a, I don't know, probably not quite a golf ball on the back of her leg. It's a lump in her lymphatic system, which is a big pocket of that's right behind the knees. And so, again, it's a congestion issue. It's a toxicity issue. What I would recommend doing if a person, especially if a person had blue eyes, but even if you had brown eyes, and there's confusion over brown eyes because some people have mixed eyes, which are biliary eyes, which aren't true brown eyes. To have true brown eyes, you have to be of Asian or African American descent somewhere in your family. And there can be mixture, of course, with blue-eyed people and brown-eyed people, and we know that. But if you have blue eyes, or let me just say this, if your eyes are green, hazel, steel gray, you have blue eyes. You don't have true brown eyes. So if you have any of those types of, if you have that type of eye, and especially if you have a blue eye, I have a 5-step action plan that I give to people through the iridology readings that I do. But I'll just tell you what those 5 steps are real quick. Because if anybody has blue eyes, they're going to feel better and do better and have a better quality of life if they follow these basic 5 steps. Now, if they have a big cyst or a big tumor or something like that, they're going to have to do these 5 steps even maybe more serious, or go harder after it, or be more restrictive, or be more serious about exercise, or whatever. Not that everybody can't benefit from being serious about this, but it just depends on your desire and what you want to achieve and your willingness to go deeper. So the 5 steps are, number 1 is exercise. Now, it sounds obvious. Everybody on the planet tells you to exercise, and even your mainstream medical doctor tells you to exercise. Like, they can figure that much out, right? So, but we don't do it. We don't think it's serious. We don't realize how serious it is. The example I give people is if you still lived on the farm and you had to get up at 5 a.m. and you had to plow the fields and take care of the animals, you moved your lymph just plenty. Now it's like, I'm so busy, life is so crazy, how am I possibly going to find 30 minutes to go to the gym and walk on a treadmill? Like, that's the world we've created. So you have to be intentional about moving the body, because God designed us to move the body. God commanded us to work the fields and sweat from our brow, and so we're not moving. And the lymph does not move unless we move. So moving the lymph is crucial, and you only do that through exercise and through deep breathing into your diaphragm and releasing it slowly. And we're all shallow breathers. I'm a shallow breather. I have to think to breathe deeply. I never breathe deeply. It's such a horrible habit. So that's step 1, is movement. Number 2, the biggest struggle for most people in doing what it takes to actually get healthy and actually get well and to clean up their lymph and everything else is eliminating all dairy, sugars, and grains. And that's the challenge. We all like our sweets and our breads and our pastas and our pizzas and our crackers and our, then we want to find the healthy versions of those things, and so we want to do the gluten-free options and the whole grain option and this option and that option. We don't actually want to give it up. But giving it up is what's actually going to take that stress and burden off the body to give it a chance to get deeper into its to-do list that it can never get to. This is why people fast. This is why people go on juice only. This is why people eat fruits and vegetables and get better, because it takes the stress away from the body of all those other things. You can eat the healthiest diet you want and never get well. I'm just going to say that. You can eat the healthiest diet that you think is the healthiest diet and never get better. It's going to be a shocking statement to a lot of people. You can be a raw vegan and never get better, because you eat nuts and nut butters, and you do the healthy sweeteners with agave, and you're still eating the healthy cookies, and you're making your own, bread, and you're just eating heavy foods. And you're never letting the body get, again, deep into the to-do list. Until you actually go restrictive and go on a water fast or a juice fast or a fruit fast or a fruit and vegetables only fast or something that takes the bread, the grain, the dairy, the heavy stuff out, you're never going to let your body heal. I just have to implore that over and over to everyone listening, that is what it takes to get well. And again, this is why so many people don't get well. We don't want to give up those things. We just want to eat the healthier versions of those things. And we never get deep into healing the body. So, number 3 of the 5-step action plan, I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head. Dry skin brushing. So that's where you get that hard bristle brush and you brush it on your arms and your legs and you go up towards your heart. And what that does is that stimulates the nerves under your skin, the blood vessels under your skin, the lymph under your skin, and it stimulates flow. It stimulates circulation, and it allows the body to cleanse and to detox at a better, deeper level. Let's see, number 4 is take care of your lymph and kidneys. You have to cleanse and detox your lymph and kidneys. Those are the main weaknesses of anybody with blue eyes. People with blue eyes genetically are predisposed to having lymphatic system issues. mucousy issues, allergies, asthma, getting their tonsils removed, their adenoids removed, getting ear infections, reoccurring ear infections, getting tubes in their ears. This is common, and I'll guarantee you, so many people listening to this are like, oh my gosh, that's my child, or that's my friend's child. It can hit at any age, but that is typical for blue eyes. And the more congested they are, the earlier this is going to hit children. And so, if you have a child that's having these issues, there's an issue. There's a congestion issue. It's not just normal. It's not just life. It's not just, oh, I'll go to the doctor and get some tubes in his ears and everything's okay, or I'm going to go to the doctor and get an antibiotic when he's sick and everything's okay. We've done that too long, and our children are suffering for it. And now those children, as adults, are suffering for it, like me and so many other people. So we have to wake up to the reality of what's going on in the body. Again, understanding that God talks to us through our body, and when there's imbalances in the body, we need to address them and not just use a medical Band-Aid and not get into deep what's going to bring life to our children long term and to us. We have to start to actually have the mindset of restoring life in the broken body and not just Band-Aiding and covering up what's going on and moving on with life. We've just done that for far too long. All right, so I'm going to go on to, so that's cysts, abnormal growths. I think I only remember 4 of them. So I'll think on it, because there's definitely 5. No, it's water and hydration. Woo! Thank you. See, thank you for reminding me of that. Water and hydration. We're talking about the fluid systems of the body. We're talking about the kidneys and the lymphatic system. All fluid waste leave the body from the blood. Okay, the life of all flesh is in the blood. I've said that many times, Leviticus 17:13. Okay, the life of all flesh is in the blood. God does everything he can. He created a body that's designed to keep blood healthy, because if the blood's not healthy, we're not healthy. So this is the fluid systems of the body. This is how it works. You have blood that has to stay healthy. You have a lymphatic system that uses interstitial fluid to pull waste out of the blood to pull it into the lymph. It's the sewer system of the body. All that waste goes into the kidneys to be eliminated out through the kidneys. So if your kidneys are compromised, you're really in trouble. If your lymph is backed up to the point where it can't filter any more waste out, you're going to be in trouble. And then your blood starts to get compromised, and then you're really in trouble. This is lupus. This is blood-related diseases and disorders. Your sewer system's backed up. No pharmaceutical drug is going to help you. None. It might make your blood numbers look different or look better. It doesn't heal you. This is the myth of the man-made medical system.
But people with lupus so dependent on what the doctors will say they will try something.
Totally. That's so true. Yeah. And that's the, I don't know what else word to use, but it's the brainwashing. It's the way the system's been set up to keep people on drugs. So that's how the fluid systems of the body work. So without water, how does the fluid system of the body work? How does the blood stay healthy? How does the lymph stay healthy? How does the kidney stay healthy without water? And people are drinking coffee and like, oh, well, coffee, I can't live without my coffee, or it's, I get it. I get what it does for people, the way it makes them feel, but you got to get off the coffee. You got to get off it if you want to get better. Soda, energy drinks, anything you're drinking that's not water, you're not going to get hydrated. So you really got to focus on water and hydration if you want to heal of these types of issues. So that was the 5. Okay, so fibroids. Fibroids is a little bit of a different nuance to what we know about fibroids, and fibroids are often the result of an imbalance in estrogen and progesterone. But I'm going to link it back to what I said from the beginning, and it's all related to toxicity conditions and congestion issues. So one of the jobs of the liver is also to filter the blood. The liver filters blood, right? Spleen filters blood. So the liver has to filter blood. So let's think, I'm going to just take you through the cycle real quick so you can understand it. Let's think hormones. Where do hormones work? In and through the blood system. Okay, organs release hormones. It goes into the blood. They're transported to different parts of the body to make different things happen. And so let's say a woman has their cycle. You produce hormones. You produce estrogen, progesterone, DHEA, testosterone, all these different steroid hormones. but mainly focusing on estrogen and progesterone when it comes to the fibroid issue. You produce hormones. They're used for a specific purpose, and then they're done. They're used up, so to speak. And then they're filtered out through the liver. It's a basic process of metabolism. They're metabolized through and out the liver. So if the liver's not working, if the liver's congested, if the liver's toxic, and these excessive hormones that the body doesn't need anymore can't be filtered out, you start to grow a fibroid tumor. Does that make sense? So this is why giving a person synthetic estrogens like birth control pills not only is silly in the first place because it's synthetic, it's a man-made chemical, it's not good, it causes cancer and all these other issues, and they're giving it to girls for acne, but it creates more synthetic estrogen in the body. The real problem's the liver. The liver's already not working. Now you've just doubled, tripled, quadrupled that person's risk of cancer and everything else. Again, our medical system is killing people. I just have to say it because it's the truth. And so this is how the process works. We have these hormones that go through the blood, can't be processed by the liver, can't exit out, and it starts to create this fibroid tumor. And if you read any natural health related literature related to fibroid tumors, it will talk about estrogen progesterone balance. It will talk about synthetic estrogens. Now, where do synthetic estrogens come from? Hormones in the meat and dairy. So eat antibiotic hormone-free meat and dairy. Plastics, herbicides and pesticides. So try to eat organic. Because herbicides and how do herbicides and pesticides work? They're estrogenic. It kills the insects by giving them an excessive amount of estrogen that destroys their endocrine system. That's how herbicides and pesticides and insecticides work. I mean, isn't that sick? Like, this is the chemical industry. Let's see, where else are these things at? Soy. Soy is why we always talk about getting rid of soy. So, soy is almost all genetically modified, which is bad in and of itself, and soy is estrogenic. So I really encourage people to get away from all soy. Birth control is all synthetic estrogens. So pesticides, herbicides, meat, dairy, soy, I think I covered it. Other heavy, huge source of synthetic estrogens destroying people and causing breast cancer and tumors and cysts and all of these things. Personal care products, deodorant, hairspray, mouthwash, makeup. Makeup's the worst. You know the most toxic thing a woman ever puts on her body is makeup? I mean, that stuff is straight poison. And if you want to decrease your risk of sickness and disease, buy natural makeup. You know the worst things we've done to God's creation is use man-made synthetic chemicals in makeup and torture animals with it. We've done it for decades. Why are we torturing animals with makeup? Because they're chemicals. They're toxic. They're poisonous. So we use animals as the guinea pigs. It's sick. It really is. This is God's creation we're talking about. And it's because we're using man-made things. It's because we're choosing man-made chemicals to put in and on our bodies. If we use natural things from I think back about the Native Americans. They knew what plants made different dyes and different colors, and they painted themselves up all cool looking to have blue and red, and there's all kinds of things out there in nature. But we don't do that. We choose the man-made chemicals. And so we just have to wake up to this stuff and to realize that it's really destroying God's creation, God's environment. God's heart saddened over it, but I think he's even more saddened of what it's doing to his creation. Not just the animals and the plants and the trees, but us, the people of God, made in his image. And so, I've said it many times, for thousands of years, all we had to choose from was God and God's creations. The synthetics industry has only been around for barely over 100 years. This is why we've rapidly accelerating the process of sickness and disease in our culture. It's because we've chosen a synthetic man-made industry and we no longer choose the things of God. And so we have to get back. We have to have a revolution, so to speak. We have to revolt against all the man-made chemicals and the medical system and the petrochemicals and the pharmaceutical drugs and the makeup. And I mean, why do you go to the store to buy deodorant when you can just put like bentonite clay or sea salt or lemon or something under your arms? And it's like, it works so good. It's because for 50, 60 years, all we've known is to be brainwashed by TV and commercials and companies trying to sell you stuff. So, all right, I'll get off of that high horse. Let's see. So I talked about liver metabolizing estrogen. That's where I was at. So liver metabolizes estrogen. We're talking about toxicity issues. And so we have to clean out our liver. And again, for brown-eyed people, they commonly have genetic weaknesses in their liver and in their blood. And so if you can work on the liver and the blood, you can start to decrease and reverse fibroids. But you're only going to decrease any of these quote-unquote abnormal growths by cleansing the body. That's the only way outside of surgery. And that's why most people go the surgery route, is because they haven't learned that there's another way. They haven't learned that they can cleanse their bodies and heal their bodies of these issues. So what is going to help balance estrogen and progesterone levels? Diet is huge. The sugar is destructive in 1,000 different ways. This is just another one. Cysts, fibroids, and tumors. Got to get off the sugar because it has to be metabolized where? In the liver. And if your liver's not working, right, your hormones are going to be messed up. And if your hormones are messed up, you might form cysts and fibroids and tumors. You see how this all works together? You see how sugar plays a role? Because you're putting the wrong type of heavy processed sugar in your body, or even the natural stuff that the liver can't handle, it can't metabolize. What's it going to do with it? So it's got to find a way out, or the body's going to compensate. Again, God is a good, smart designer. I always say that we are able to stay alive in spite of ourselves. In spite of the crazy things that we do to our bodies, we manage to somehow stay alive and survive. It's kind of shocking to me. That, like how awesome God designed the body that's able to withstand all the things that we do. So a couple of things you can do. Hormone balancing. Huge for women. Now, the key to hormone balancing is getting declogged, uncongested, getting the lymph cleaned out, getting the liver working, making sure the liver's metabolizing properly. All women's hormone cycle-related issues are the result of their body not being able to get rid of the used-up hormones that their body produced from the cycle, which is metabolized out through the liver. Pregnancy symptoms, liver issues. Problems with a women's cycle, liver issues. Blood issues. Congestion issues. Always. I mean, my wife's a perfect example. Night and day difference between her hormones and our first and second pregnancy when we worked on her health. Night and day. So, things you can do for hormone balancing. I did a little show and tell just once in a while because it's fun. I talked about getting the synthetic estrogens out. Meat, dairy, herbicides, pesticides, plastics, soy, makeup, all that stuff. We got to eat fruits and vegetables, lots of them. Nuts and seeds are actually really good for the hormones. Why? It's the reproductive part of the plant. God's a cool designer. So the reproductive parts of the plants actually help our reproductive system. So nuts and seeds are good for us in that area. Pine pollen's a good thing for that. I'm going to talk about a couple of things you can do to balance your hormones. Let me talk about a specific product that I've seen work really good for fibroids, because a lot of women have fibroids. Like I said, a lot of African American, but you can have blue eyes and have fibroids, and you can have brown eyes and have cysts, of course, just because it's all congestion issues. But I'm just saying it's more common for blue-eyed, more fair-skinned people to have the cysts, and the more African American, darker-skinned, brown-eyed people to have the fibroids. This is called Fibrovera. So there's a couple of things that work to balance hormones. Diet's crucial, I mentioned that. There's a couple of things you can do. Herbs, because herbs balance hormones. Herbs clean out the body. Herbs are the things that God gave us to cleanse our bodies. Why do some herbs work for the liver and some herbs work for the pancreas and some herbs work for the thyroid and some herbs work for the kidneys? Because God loves us and he made tens of thousands of plants and he knew that we were going to need them. He also knew that we weren't going to choose him for a very, very long time. But now I think we're coming back to him, which is what gets me excited, which is why I do what I do. It's to get people off of that system onto God's system. It's all that matters to me. It's that people find God in what I say. Fibrovera. It's a blend of hormone balancing herbs and enzymes. So you can do enzyme therapy. So enzymes are catalysts that perform certain functions in the body. The way I like to describe enzymes is, do you remember that game Pac-Man where they ate the little dots? Okay. It's like Pac-Man. They go through the body and they eat up old, dead, sick, diseased tissue, scar tissue, old used up stuff, old hormones. It gobbles all that stuff up. It cleans up the body. And so people will see their scars disappear or vastly improve by taking enzymes. And so this is a blend of enzymes and herbs. It's called Fibrovera. Fibro. What do you think they were trying to get at with that product? Okay, you can't claim anything on these natural health products because, like, God forbid you use something that God created to heal your body and not a man-made pharmaceutical drug that destroys people. But that's the system we have right now. So until people choose the things of God, it won't bring that system down. So this is a great blend for women to take for fibroid tumors that combines enzyme therapy with herbs that balance hormones. Some of the other herbs that balance hormones, just to help bring estrogen and progesterone in line, a lot of people know about taking a progesterone cream. That's a short-term solution, not a long-term solution. I really want to stress that. Because there's women that have been taking progesterone creams for years. I'm not saying that's bad, but what I'm saying is your liver's not working and you've never addressed your liver. So what you're doing is you're putting progesterone into your bloodstream because your liver's not working and it's not metabolizing out the estrogen properly, and you're using the progesterone to bring the estrogen back into balance. And again, that's not a bad thing because that's very beneficial to a lot of people. But the liver's the root issue you've never addressed. So if you want long-term health, you want to go after the liver. So some of the herbs that help with hormone balancing that are best known to balance like estrogen and progesterone are herbs like red raspberry leaf, stinging nettle. What other ones did I write down here? Thought I had a list of them. Maybe not. I'll have to make it up. So red raspberry, stinging nettle, red clover would be another good one. Any herb that's good for the liver. So that's a long list, right? Milk thistle, yellow dock, burdock root. So there's just a ton of good liver herbs. But if you look at a lot of female hormone balancing herbs, it has like red raspberry nettle, but it combines it with a lot of liver herbs. Because a lot of herbalists know the importance of the liver related to women's hormones. And I'll tell you who's really good at understanding the liver, and that's Chinese medicine. I have a product called FemMate, and I give this to women all the time. FemMate. Fem as in female. It's a hormone balancing product, but it basically has mostly liver herbs in it. Why? Because the Chinese understand the link between the liver and female hormones. That with a hormone issue, there's always a liver issue. Because the hormone issue means there's a blood issue, because all hormones are transported through the blood. So this is a blend of curcuma, which you think curcumin, you think turmeric. Self-heal, bupleurum, one of the #1 herbs used in Chinese medicine to heal the liver. So this is a really neat formula too. Another good herb for balancing progesterone and estrogen levels is Vitex, which is chase tree berry. What does chase tree berry do? It naturally increases progesterone levels. Naturally. It's not like taking progesterone. It naturally increases progesterone levels. So this has Vitex in it. This is called progesteronic. It's to naturally increase progesterone levels. Crucial for women who are wanting to get pregnant, who have fertility issues. It's really crucial to increase progesterone levels because that's the #1 reason women miscarry, is a lack of progesterone. And menopausal symptoms are all signs of estrogen gone crazy because you're not producing as much progesterone anymore because you're not going to have a baby because progesterone means progestation. And so now the estrogen is dominant, and all those symptoms are related to estrogen-progesterone imbalance related to menopause. And it's your immediate indicator that my liver's not working right if you have menopausal symptoms. You ever heard that one before? I know. So Feminescence, this is a really cool hormone balancing product too. They have 3 different versions of it for premenopause. I shouldn't say premenopause, perimenopause, like you're going through menopause. I guess that's what you call it. And then postmenopause. So they have a product called Maca Pause for postmenopause. They have a perimenopause product called Maca Life. And then this is called Maca Harmony. Now this is for women who have fertility issues, who aren't having their cycle or having a regular cycle. I've just seen this help women so much with regulating their cycle. It's a really good product. It's got maca in it. Maca is a Peruvian root vegetable that's been used for balancing hormones for a long, long time. It was really huge when I worked at a health food store about 10 years ago, and it still continues to be popular because it's a great herb and it really, really works. So women with really bad cysts can do a couple of things to give them relief, or fibroids. But the key is, I just have to stress it again, change your diet, stop eating the sugar, the dairy, and the grains, stop eating too much meat, eat fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, and little light portions of quality meat. That'll start to give your to-do list a chance to catch up a little bit. That is crucial. Get all the synthetic estrogens out of your life and out of your body. Take herbs to balance your hormones. But while you're going through that process, women are really suffering through their cycles. I see that in women a lot. So I have a product I give women called BioCMP. It's nothing overly special. CMP, calcium, magnesium, potassium. They're minerals. And I have women take 4 as soon as they start to feel cramping, and then 2 every hour. And a lot of times it'll take away the cramping or severely reduce it. They don't have to take ibuprofen and Tylenol and all these different painkillers because the pain is so bad. So that's something you could do, is you could do minerals. Calcium, magnesium, potassium, electrolyte minerals. Endure electrolyte minerals you can add to your water. We have one called Spark, I think it is. Just any kind of electrolyte minerals you can add to your water, but the magnesium being the key. And you can take magnesium oil, and you can rub it right where your ovaries are. And that magnesium will just relax that area and really help with that pain from those cysts. So that's a couple of good things you can do. Another good thing you can do is castor oil. You can do a castor oil pack. So you can take a flannel, a wool or cotton flannel, soak it in castor oil, and apply that right to your abdomen and down into your pelvis where the ovaries are. And that is amazing, because castor oil is palma Christi, which is palm of Christ or hand of Christ. They named it that in Latin because it heals everything, like Jesus did, right? So I don't think it heals everything that Jesus did, but it's a very powerful plant. And it really actually helps dissolve cysts and tumors. Castor oil has the power to dissolve cysts and tumors. And you want to apply a heating pad to it. So the heat brings blood flow. So remember we're talking about blood and blood and blood and blood flow. So the castor oil pack and the heat brings heat to the area and allows the castor oil to work on the body. Castor oil, I read a whole book on castor oil. It opens up the lymphatic system. It boosts the immune system. It dissolves cysts. It dissolves gallstones. So castor oil is extremely powerful. So that's another thing you can do. If the pain's really bad, you can do natural painkillers. We have one called Dotacin. It's got a blend of turmeric and boswellia and your herbs and all those different things. We have Tumarol, which is a liquid concentrated turmeric that's amazing for reducing pain and inflammation. But the strongest thing, and I'm talking about this now at most of my classes now because I've just gotten really excited about it, it's the CBD oil. It's the hemp oil. And that'll knock out about anybody's pain and inflammation with about anything that they're dealing with. You can do liquid or capsules. You can do liquid drops, or you can rub it on topically, just like the magnesium. You can rub it there topically. It'll give instant relief, because what it does is it relaxes the entire nervous system. So those are some things you can do immediately if you have pain with cysts or fibroids. And you can make those go away. You can reverse this process. You don't have to get a surgery. I'm speaking to any woman out there especially, and I know men get cysts too, but women especially, really struggling with cysts and fibroids, getting surgeries for it. And I mean, I've heard the stories. I've talked to the women. In their spirit, they know that there's a better solution. In their spirit, they know that surgery isn't the answer. But they're not given any options. And so God wants us whole. He wants us to be whole. He doesn't want to have stuff removed if we can avoid it. He wants us whole. He created every single part of us for a very specific reason and purpose. He wants it all. He wants us whole. So until we learn how to cleanse and heal our bodies, until we learn how to use herbs and the natural medicines that God gave us to reverse these issues, we're going to continue down this path of destruction, which is what the medical system has done. So let's see, hit that. Gosh, I think that was most of it. What time is it? I don't even have a clock.
12.
It's just about noon? Okay, so that's probably pretty good. So I didn't really touch, so cysts, I just want to just reiterate, was usually congestion of the lymph, kidneys being backed up, the lymph being backed up, the body having to form cysts. A lot of times you see the lipomas, the fatty cysts, because fat is processed through the lymph. You think of breast cysts, fibrocystic breast. Okay, so this is when I think of cysts. Really think lymph. And when you think of fibroids, think more of liver, blood, synthetic estrogens. It's all the same because all of it you need to cleanse. All of it we need to get away from processed foods and grain, sugar, and dairy. And yes, that means healthy versions of grain, sugar, and dairy. Sorry. It just depends on where you're at. You know, if you're in really good health and you want to eat some Ezekiel bread and some raw milk off the farm, go for it. You know, it's no big deal. But if you're trying to heal your body of anything, you got to get away from it. All of it. Just think of it this way. Let's see. Let me just paint a picture for you. I think painting pictures helps. God designed me to have this amazing system to eliminate waste from the body. The lymphatic system is over 100,000 miles long of tubing to eliminate waste. I have 100+ thousands of miles of tubing that's congested to the point that it now has to form a cyst to keep toxins out of my bloodstream. You're not going to get better doing healthy versions of grain, sugar, and dairy. Does that paint a picture? You have to cleanse thousands of miles of tubing to let the body get to the to-do list to finally get to the cyst, because God wants to. But we have to give him the opportunity to get there. And the only way to do that is through fasting and cleansing and healing our bodies. And that takes work, and that takes diligence, and that takes turning away from things, and that takes not going to 1,000 different parties all the time, because that's just our lives. Like, it's graduation month, right? I mean, I just went to how many graduation parties this weekend and ate way more than I wanted to or should have. You know? So that's just, at some point we have to choose. That's why we're doing the Summer Detox Challenge. Starting next Sunday, we're doing 3 months of fruits and vegetables only. And we're walking people through a cleansing process, through every organ system. Why? Because we want to see people set free from sickness and disease, and God wants you set free from sickness and disease. God is not a bad designer. He's a great designer. We don't understand his design. So I will end with that. Amen and amen.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a friend who's doing raw foods. She's got a food processor.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a nodule on her thyroid. She does not want to get a surgery.
Right.
Is a nodule the same as
Mm-hmm.
what you're talking about?
Yep, a nodule anywhere is an abnormal growth. It's a toxicity. It's a buildup of toxicity.
She's doing all these right things, and she knows that that's what she needs to do.
Yeah.
to make
You'd have to analyze it. you'd have to analyze like what's going on, because she might be eating raw foods and doing, but is she eating still heavy foods? Is she still, is she doing grain, sugar, or dairy? Does she understand cleansing? Is she doing kidney cleansing? There could be...
She's researching that.
Right, so that's probably the next step, is to get into more serious cleansing, kidney cleansing, lymph cleansing. A lot of times with the thyroid, there's a buildup of toxins from like nuclear fallout, x-rays, like different things can really damage the thyroid and cause those issues.
Could it be stress?
No, I mean, stress makes things worse, and it blocks your body from healing, but it doesn't make a cyst form, you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, she's probably doing, and the other thing too is these things usually form slowly over time. So when you do all the right things, they're going to decrease slowly over time, right? And we're in a instant gratification society. So if it takes me more than the 30-day cleanse to get better, I don't want to do it, because most people can't even do a 30-day cleanse. I mean, doing 3 days without eating is like, people think they're going to die. I did the first time I did it. I'm like, what? Skip one meal? No way. You crazy? How can I do that? How can you do that to your kids? That's like child abuse. If your kids skip a meal. Just kidding. So anyway, I'm just playing. But it is funny how we've, like, the majority of our sickness and disease in our culture is from overeating and overdoing the wrong things. And when we start to restrict and we start to cut back and people start to lose weight and we start to not feed our kids like an abundance of food, we think we're doing something wrong, or we're potentially hurting someone. It's really interesting. Any other questions about cysts or tumors or fibroids? Yes?
Yeah, I guess in those healthy alternatives of sweeteners, stevia, how does the body metabolize stevia?
That's a good question. Stevia I am a fan of and I'm not a fan of. Stevia is a plant God gave us. And you plant it in your garden, and you take a leaf, and you taste it, and you go, wow, that's really sweet. So it's just a really cool plant that God gave us that's sweet. And so it totally can be used as a sweetener. What I don't like about it is getting hooked on it, because you're like really, really have to have sweet all the time, because you're still kind of tricking your body into giving an abnormal amount of sweet taste, which still throws off the hormones and metabolism and all different kinds of things. And so I'm fine with using it. My wife, we actually grow it in the garden. She'll put it in foods and sauces and stuff like that. But using dropperfuls of stevia all day in everything you do, it's not a stevia issue, it's a sweet issue. So I would say it's probably better to deal with the sweet issue. But small amounts in your tea once in a while, just to use it when you want the sweet taste once in a while, it's perfectly great. Because it's not going to, there's no os in stevia, let's say that. Because all sweeteners have os. Dextrose, sucrose, fructose, maltose, all those different sugars. And there's no sugar molecules in stevia. It's just a sweet plant. So it is a good option. Just not overdoing it.
But if you're doing this cleanse and stuff, you want to stay away from that too?
Yeah. If I was doing a cleanse, I definitely would not do stevia.
Yeah.
And especially if you're doing a cleanse, you should be eating, you're probably eating fruit, which is sweet. And you don't, the reason we need so much sweet is our taste buds are off, because we've eaten so many sweets so many years. So if you get away from sweets and you eat real foods for an extended period of time and your body cleanses, all of a sudden now you do a little bit of stevia and you go, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. How do you do that? I hear that all the time.
So dealing